How is everyone doing this afternoon? Juan Catamayo, JCT for Education for you. Today from Mexico City, we have a dear friend of mine, colleague, spectacular professional that you will get to learn through the next 30 plus minutes on our live. Here we have Alpha Nguella, a USEP student. Alpha, you stay here, don't go anywhere. You gotta meet an incredible advisor, Maria Mercedes Salmon. And remember, all these videos, they are housed on IGTV, here on Instagram, and also on YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed to JCT for Education YouTube channel, this is the time to do so. And without further ado, let's invite our guest of today, Lives Conversations with Juan Catamayo, and we have Maria Salmon, all the way from Mexico City. Ta 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 ta. Hola.
Hola.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien. ¿Y ustedes qué tal? ¿Cómo están?
Muy bien. Today is a little bit of a rainy day here in South Florida, but luckily we needed water desperately. It hasn't rained in a long time. And how are you in Mexico?
Well, things are going well here too. The weather is crazy. We have hot days and then it cools down. We have a little bit of rain as well. Things are going, I guess the earth is healing, so we'll take it.
Okay, so for those of you that are watching Education USA Advisors, please, you see that little plane on the lower side? Just tell your friends that Maria Mercedes Salmon is here with us live on Instagram. And Maria Mercedes, I will tell everyone this is your first live on Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Congratulations, you're new. I've been so surprised. We're getting close to 50 conversations, and for most of our colleagues, students, friends, there's been their first live. So thank you, but I'm sure this is not new to you. You've done Facebook lives, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay. Have you tried Twitter lives?
No, I haven't. Okay. No.
Already. And
a whole new world.
A whole new world. And my colleague here at JCT, he just told us, I just watched my first live on LinkedIn from IE University in Spain. So LinkedIn has a beta program that is trying. So I know you are always looking for technologies. But for those of you that are watching, Conversations is about our guest. And Maria Mercedes, I had the pleasure, the honor to meet you. I'm going back, I don't know, probably 2000. I think we met in Mexico for the first time in Cuernavaca or prior to Cuernavaca, one of the Education USA triennials. So it's been a long time.
Or maybe in South America.
Maybe in South America too. But Maria Mercedes, where are you from originally?
I'm from Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Okay. And you went to high school in Guayaquil, Colegio Americano Guayaquil.
Sí.
Who was your high school counselor? Because I went to your school. My first time in Guayaquil was in 1997, and we went to visit your school. I remember it was the Linden tour in 97. I stayed at Hotel Oro Verde. And Guayaquil has changed so much since then. You have an amazing mayor right now, and people from Guayaquil are just doers. So who was your high school counselor?
So actually, when I was in high school, we didn't have a counselor per se. We had more of a vocational counselor, somebody, who would help us decide what our future would look like in terms of a career, but not necessarily helping us with the whole admissions and application process to U.S. colleges. So I had the fortune of having participated in an exchange program when I was in high school with a high school in Minnesota. And so I learned a lot from my host family, in the whole college application, and I was an IB diploma. So I thought, well, why not apply to college in the US right after graduating from high school? But then I decided to stay in Ecuador, and I didn't, I didn't do my undergraduate studies in the US as I had hoped for.
So you went back from Minnesota back to Guayaquil, and then you decided to go to Universidad Católica de Santiago, Guayaquil, and you wanted to study Ingeniería y Gestión Empresarial. That's more of a business engineering program degree, and
Mm-hmm.
you were there for 4 years. How one in high school decides to study Ingeniería, engineering of like business engineering? What drive you to study that?
Well, this is a funny story because honestly, through my counselor, the vocational counselor, she does all of those kinds of tests on you. And my score came back to say that I was 96 plastic arts. So I
Okay.
honestly, according to the test, I should have been an architect. But at that time, architecture and well, I guess still to this day requires a lot of physics.
Yes.
And I didn't love physics. I love math. I'm very good at math. I love
Okay.
everything else. I love drawing and all of that. But physics was kind of, a weakness for me. So I decided, well, I'm not going to study architecture. I didn't feel like, studying engineering at that time, per se, some kind of chemical, more hard sciences. So I've always liked the international aspect of things. And I
Okay.
always liked relationships, building
Okay.
relationships. My grandmother, since I was a little girl, she always said I should be a diplomat. But international business engineering was the closest degree that I could have access to in Guayaquil, in my hometown. So that's how I
Okay.
ended up with that degree.
Well, in a way, you're a diplomat right now. You're working for Education USA, and I have my respects for all the advisors that you oversee in 55 centers, 24 countries. Please, a big hug and thank you to all the advisors that are watching us right now, not only from your region, but from all over the world, because we will deep into what an advisor means, and that's what you are. You've been a great mentor and advisor, and we're so thankful for your time because I'm going crazy with the amount of information overflow that we're getting, emails, tweeters, videos. Just got one from my mom. You got to watch this video. It's 45 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bed late. And because all the information that we manage, but it's just phenomenal what you've been doing and building for the last years. So you finished at Universidad Católica, and then you decided to go for your master's degree in Ohio. So tell us a little bit about Ohio University. How did you find Ohio University for International Affairs for your master's degree?
Mm-hmm. So when I was at the Universidad Católica de Santiago de Guayaquil, I became a teaching assistant
Okay.
to a teacher, one of my professors there. She taught international organizations, and she was a Fulbrighter. And
Okay.
she suggested that I also have the profile to apply for a Fulbright scholarship. So I did, and I got a Fulbright scholarship to study in the United States. And through the support of the program, through IIE, who was in charge of the placement of the Ecuadorian Fulbrighters, I was suggested to apply to Ohio University as one of my choices.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up applying there. I hadn't thought about Ohio as a destination, and the reason why I chose that program was, well, first, the program itself, the director of the program had a lot of experience in Latin America. The
Mm-hmm.
program was very small, so I knew that I would have, more personalized attention in my program and my education.
Mm-hmm.
And then also they did give me a full scholarship.
Okay.
So that was, I went to school in 99, and that year Ecuador had a big financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, if education is all paid for, thank you, OU, go Bobcats. I chose to go there, and it was a life-changing experience for me because I never thought I would end up in Ohio, but I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
So how was your trip? You flew Guayaquil to Miami, Miami to Chicago, Chicago. How was your trip? How was your journey?
So I went from Guayaquil to Miami and Miami to Columbus,
Oh, Columbus.
Ohio. And then
Okay.
from Columbus, I was picked up by somebody from the university
Yes.
and drove 2 hours away to Athens, Ohio.
Yes.
So
Yes. No, you got my memories back when I was a college student, and I wish. Take me right now. Let's pause for a second. How old is Education USA? Because when I did my college search, I didn't have a high school. It was just all through an independent counselor in Medellin. But how old has been Education USA been around?
So Education USA branded that way with our name. It's been around for 20 years
Okay.
as educational advising, but it actually started happening a long time ago. We have records from the 80s, from the 70s, where educational advising was being offered through the embassies, through the US embassies in different regions, and often we would have somebody who would be appointed a coordinator, and
Mm-hmm.
then through our partnerships within our host institutions, so by national centers or universities, Fulbright commissions, we offered services to the students who were interested in studying in the United States. So
Okay.
it's been around for longer than we think,
Okay.
or we may collect our memories from.
Yes.
But as a brand, Education USA turned 20 last fall.
Oh,
So yeah.
happy birthday! And I I am so impressed with everything. The first time I learned about Education USA was on my trip to Zimbabwe in 2003, where I met Rebecca Ziegler-Mano. She was actually here on our conversation show, and I met Rebecca, and she introduced that year to us the USEP concept, United States Achiever Program, and we have a student from Zimbabwe. We have Alpha, who is also watching, and he graduated from Arizona State University. So, how many students do you guys estimate throughout all these years have gone through an advisor or advising center and have graduated from the United States? Any data on that one?
So we don't have specific data on how many students have actually graduated and have received Education USA advising services, because our services are very open, and
Mm-hmm.
we guide the students through the whole process. So at any point a student could find us, in the beginning they need to define, they're not sure about their plans, so they come and they have a conversation with an advisor, and then maybe that student doesn't come back again until the end, right? Maybe he comes back because he wants to participate in one of our pre-departure orientation sessions. And then there are
Okay.
students that work with us throughout the whole process. And then there are students who go and we never hear back from. So those statistics are hard for us to keep because our program is a public diplomacy program.
Yes.
So our main goal is to bring the message that you can do it, right? And we're here to support you if that's your dream. If you want to go study in the US, if you work with us, you will be successful. But we are not, the success of our operation is not measured until now, at least, by the number of students that actually end up going and graduating from the US. We do have
Okay.
special cohorts and special programs that do
Okay.
allow us to have at least a tally of how many students have been Education USA alumni and that have completed successfully their education in the United States. But stay tuned. Maybe the next interview, I'll have some numbers for you.
Okay. I just want to take a pause. Mi mamá está aquí en el live. Hola, mami. She never gets onto my live, so she's trying to learn technology. Hola, mami. And actually, the two of you, they live in Mexico City. So I'm so happy she's live with us right now. So thank you for that, Maria Mercedes. So you go back. Let's go back to Ohio for a second. You graduated, and then you say you gotta go back home. You gotta go back to Guayaquil, and and then what happened? You started with the Fulbright office in Guayaquil.
Yes, well, actually, I graduated and I did academic practical training for
Mm-hmm.
a little bit in Columbus, Ohio. I worked for the Columbus International Program, where I learned a lot about J visas because it was an internship program for students coming from Africa mainly to,
Okay.
well, in that case, to Ohio. And we
Yes.
would help them with professional development opportunities. So
Okay.
after that, I went back home, but I reached out to the Fulbright Commission director at that time and said, well, I'm looking for opportunities and I'm thinking of relocating to Quito.
Yes.
And so I moved to Quito in June, at the end of June of 2002. And
Okay.
from then on, I started working for the Fulbright Commission. I became their senior advisor, and eventually I became a country coordinator for
Mm-hmm.
Education USA. I also ran the Ecuadorian Fulbrighters program. So
Okay.
all of the scholarships that were for academic purposes, I was in charge of in the Fulbright Commission in Quito. I lived there
My,
for 10 years.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
I loved it.
that's where we met in Quito. Now that is the flashback, it goes back to me. That's where we met long time ago. It's gonna be almost 18 years where we both met. So saludos para todos en Ecuador, en Quito, Ray, Marks, Todd, todos saludos. Um, so you actually worked there, and then an opportunity came out, and I see that you did some work with NAFSA for a couple of years or for almost 3 years. What was that role that you have with NAFSA?
So I was invited. I attended, I think, almost every NAFSA while I was at the Fulbright Commission in Ecuador, and yeah, just by participating in the conference and being very active, I volunteered a few times. I was invited to apply for a leadership position. These are voluntary positions within the organization,
Okay.
but I was invited to participate in representation of Education USA, of our educational advising within the, well, knowledge community right now known as International Enrollment Management,
Yes.
IEM. But back then, we've been through a couple of changes then, but I was the representative for the whole Education USA network for several years within NAFSA in
Okay.
their leadership.
So I want to take a pause to say hi to Katie Portal, and we have Christian Safi as well. We have Jihali, we have Diana Hara, we have Batista, Hola Batista. So we have advisors that I've seen that they're logging in as we speak. Let me ask you a question. How are things right now in Mexico? Right here, they're kind of opening up in Florida, phase one. What about you guys?
Well, we are not, or we
Okay.
shouldn't be, but I think that right now that we are hitting a peak in
Okay.
terms of the numbers that are being reported by the health ministry here, and then there are already plans for what the going back will look like. Actually, I just during this call I just got from two different people the government's plans shared with me through WhatsApp. So so we know that for Mexico City, because the whole government, each state has their own plan and will have their own proposal depending on the level of how the pandemic is being treated in each state. But for
Okay.
Mexico City itself, we are projecting that this the lockdown will end progressively, starting on June 15th, and then
Okay.
from then on we'll be working on a semáforo system, meaning for the traffic light colors.
Okay.
And so right now it's red, of course, and then we'll move into orange, yellow, and then green. So green is estimated, anytime between August and September.
Oh,
So
wow.
we
Wow.
think that we are gonna still be, at home, working
Okay.
from home for a little
Okay.
while longer, but that's okay. We need to be safe, and we have lots of work to do. For Education USA, we've just migrated everything that we do into virtual, so our
Yes.
services continue.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of interest from the students to work with us again, so that's
Have you
great.
seen a big pike of users through your website?
Yeah, absolutely. We see, on all of our postings on social media, advisors report, at least a 50% increase in engagement.
Okay.
And then in terms of the services offered and students making appointments to meet with the advisors virtually, of course, we've
Okay.
seen an 80% increase in
Wow.
their
Wow.
request of one-on-one appointments more than anything. So so we're pretty happy with those results because it's positive. It means that first, students are still interested in studying in the United States, and
Yes.
we're really happy about that. And second, that we can support them in the process, and that we can continue to be relevant and reinvent what we were doing. In a way, we have evolved into new programming as well, and creating new things for the students. So that's all very exciting for us.
Yeah, the technology that is required for the next wave of our next generation is tremendous. We were just talking yesterday in our office, online virtual office, that virtual college fairs for universities to join are not going to be very cheap. They're going to be actually quite expensive, and it's because of the software is quite expensive. So they are trying to do 3D imaging, and they are trying to have a very sophisticated platform. So we will all going to be attending some college fairs. Are you guys planning on creating your own platform for college fairs, or you're going to be joining other college fairs? What's the scoop, if you can share any news?
Yeah, absolutely. So well, first of all, we are receiving a lot of invitations from other organizers to join their events. And of course, we are accepting those invitations. And we are learning more about how to use the new technologies and the different platforms that are out there. For us, we've had to come up with some perhaps more in-house produced
Okay.
platforms or fairs. We just hosted one in Asia. We use Zoom and WebEx, and all of the different webinar platforms that are out there. In Canada, we just had our first series of what we're calling the showcases of higher
Okay.
education institutions, and we use Big Marker, which is again more like a webinar platform.
Okay.
And so a lot of these fairs that we're thinking about are perhaps on the more informational way or MO of conducting information sharing, so webinars, and perhaps through the chat features of these platforms, we're having exchanges with the students. But we are thinking long term of
Okay.
exploring the route of doing some of these more elaborate platforms that would allow us to have, even the avatars and, the
Yes.
booths and all of that, so that there can be more engagement and interaction with the students.
Correct.
So for now, even for Costa Rica, we're hosting another series of virtual webinars or fairs on STEAM next week. Starting next week, we'll have 4 sessions. So we're trying to adapt with the resources that we already have and that we are familiar with at this time. But we are exploring other platforms. Ideally, worldwide, we would all have access to something big that would allow us to have, more interactive programming. But for now, we're, offering sessions. So we welcome all of those who want to participate in our webinars. Just send us an email. We'll accommodate you.
So for the students watching or high school counselors, independent counselors, they just type Education USA, and once they land into your page, what happens? Where do they find that information?
So there are several ways in which they can find information. I would say the most effective way is to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, and each center has their own form of social media as well.
Yes.
But we do have our global account, so that students cannot find a specific country or a specific center. They can always go to our website, which is a second way in which they can find out about our events. There will be all of the events are posted on our website, and students can actually also access the Find an Advising Center feature. So, they can find that or search that by country or even by city if there are multiple centers in one country. So they have access to that information through our website as well.
Okay, thank you. And I've been watching your social media. I was very impressed with the way, and thank you to Education USA, whoever manages the account. Thank you for pushing our conversation. You have thousands and thousands of followers on Education USA Instagram, checking your Twitter account. It is fascinating. And I want to say, if Marty Bennett is watching here, he started all the technology back then with Education USA. I want to say hello to Nicole Johnson as well at IIE. But let's go back to you, because I am so proud. I'm so happy when I see your face on our social media, when I see you on LinkedIn, on your career. I mean, from where you started in Guayaquil thinking about international affairs, look where you are. You became a REAC. What is a REAC? A Regional Educational Advisor Coordinator. How many REACs like you are in the world?
So we are 15 REACs around the world. We are 3 here in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas. I'm, based here in Mexico City, and I have 2 other human beings who are my closest friends. Rita Morricone, who perhaps many of you know, she's based in Rio de Janeiro, and Anaria Vicencio, who is my friend based in Quito, Ecuador, who covers the Andean region. So so that's our Western Hemisphere team, but most of the regions around the world will have teams of between 2 and 3 REACs per bigger world region.
Well, and for those of you watching, think about Maria Mercedes. She manages 55 centers in her region: Mexico, Canada, Central America, and the Caribbean. How many centers are right now in the world? I think I had a number here. I'm going to throw that number. Let me know if I'm wrong. 452?
Well, right now, I think we're closer to 500. So 480 something. It's I believe is the most recent number. We are a dynamic network too. So we open new centers, we close some centers to open better centers. We are constantly assessing and evaluating where the needs are to provide our services to the students. And with that, we're always searching for who the right partner is within a region, a city, a country, depending on the setup for that specific region of the world.
How many centers are there right now in Mexico? The whole country?
Mexico, we currently have 26 centers. So it's the country in my portfolio with the largest number of centers.
And I remember when I visited your center in Mexico, it was at the Benjamin Franklin Library. It's still there?
Yes, the Mexico City Center is still at the Benjamin Franklin Library, and my office is also there. So.
Okay, that's good. So for the students and parents that are watching and high school counselors around the world, they better know what Education USA is now. But free services, I mean, free advising, they might ask you for a, I don't know, a minimal membership fee because sometimes they need funding and so forth. But what a great resource. I am from Medellin, Colombia, and I know we have an advising center there, and a lot of students they write me from Colombia, from all over, and I send them the link to every specific advisor in every country or even every region. So your website has so much resources. Maria Mercedes, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about, I was reading about you. You have a favorite subject that is called 2+2. And I think that 2+2 will become again very, very popular. You want to explain what the 2+2 is?
Sure. So the 2+2 education model is that opportunity that students have to start their college education at a community college or a vocational college, get those first 2 years of education and then transfer their credits and that degree that they have into a 4-year or a research institution to complete their bachelor's degree at a different institution. So
Okay.
so this is a model that we find, at least in my region, it has a lot of success for the students and their families, because perhaps in the beginning, the students are working on preparing themselves and being the most competitive that they can be to be admitted into a highly selective 4-year institution. However, there may be things that affected their progress in being ready for that. And so a community college is always a great option for some students who perhaps are not the most accomplished during their high school years. Perhaps their scores, their graduation scores weren't the highest, their test scores were not the highest when they took their SAT or their TOEFL, and
Yes.
they need refresher courses. And so we think that the community colleges, being so able to offer students more tailored made education and programs that are very attractive and innovative, and then have the opportunity to transfer to
Yes.
get a bachelor's degree from a university. It's a resource that is not very well known. Also, most often, the cost of education at a community college is going to be lower than
Yes.
studying at a 4-year institution, and it's a good way also for families to save money. So during those 2 first years, they would pay tuition levels that are lower, and then they can transfer to a university, and they would have saved some money so that they can meet some of the more expensive tuitions at the 4-year institution level.
And
So in Central America, it's of great interest. We have a lot of opportunity, and also in the Caribbean, we have a lot of opportunity. I will
okay.
say that I was also in Quebec last spring, a year ago actually, and that part of Canada was also very interested in the community college. And more than anything right now, I think institutions are thinking a lot about exchanges. Students want to go perhaps for a shorter period of time and experience, that opportunity to be on a US campus, and if it's related to skills development, which is another big buzzword, at least for my portfolio, my region. There's a lot of investment by the private sector and some local governments as well, in terms of how do we build the future workforce for us, and what are the skills that these students need to have in order to come back to the region and help us grow our economies. And
Yes.
so, so in that sense, the community colleges are also a great option for our students, because they can go acquire those skills, transfer to a more academic degree perhaps, and then come back to their country. And also, just one more last, piece of information on why community colleges themselves are attractive to our region is that they also allow for non-degree programs, certificate programs that are very attractive as well for younger or midterm professionals that are out there and are looking for also, a refreshing opportunity for their education.
Okay, thank you. I just want to take a second to say hello to Moburki Do Work, Christian Safik, Mike Mora, Margarita Restrepo, Karen Nunes, advisor coordinator in Mexico, overseeing 55 centers in 24 countries. And Maria Mercedes just told us that she's visited all her centers, all the 24 countries. So good job, Maria Mercedes. Because I'm conscious about your time and people's time, we have seen a spike on graduate interest. Right now, the economy is not in good shape around the world. I am from Colombia. I'm from the US, but in Colombia, the economy, the peso has depreciated around 22, 25%. So what you had as a savings before, it shrunk. A lot of people have lost their jobs, but they have some savings, or they want to apply for a grant or a Fulbright opportunity. How difficult is to get a Fulbright scholarship to go into a graduate program? And you have the experience.
Well, I think that depends a lot on each individual. I will say it's not impossible, but you need to prepare yourself as you would, if you were applying directly to any program in any university or college in the US or anywhere, right? But the Fulbright program is a very competitive program, mainly because there are limited spots.
How many scholarships per year? I'm sorry.
It depends, and it varies from country to country. So we have countries which, where we have Fulbright commissions who may have a little bit more of a budget to have, 10 students, 15 students, 30, 100 students. Wow. It will depend mainly on the contribution of the US government and the host government as well, because the Fulbright program is an agreement between two governments. And so there are governments actually that contribute more to the Fulbright program every year than the US government does for that particular country. So we have those cases where we have Fulbright commissions, and then we have cases like in my region, Central America and the Caribbean, we don't have Fulbright commissions in those countries. The Fulbright program is run through the US embassies, and the budgets are very limited there. So we have funding perhaps for 5 scholarships, as opposed to 100 scholarships in other countries. The US embassies do a great job in trying to identify within the private sector and do a little bit of public-private partnerships so that there are funds that are invested into the Fulbright program, and there can be support for more students to pursue a graduate degree in the US. But it will vary from country to country. So that's what makes it more competitive. If you're competing among 100 participants for 5 spots, you have to be very well prepared, and Education USA can help you do that. Our advisors are trained to advise students to come and go through the application process the most competitive way they can be.
No, and I just want to send a word of encouragement to the students. Not only the Fulbright is an option, but there are many, many, many grants and opportunities. And that's why it's so handy to come to an Education USA center and also to explore with each graduate department. You mentioned you came to the United States in one of the most difficult economical times for South America, particularly for Ecuador, and all of us. We faced that in 1999. And you went on a Fulbright scholar. So I will tell the students that are watching, just keep working hard, doing your research, contacting faculty at that university, but don't be discouraged. Just keep knocking those doors. Uh, Last but not least, we've been getting updates from about student visas and so forth. Where can a student look for updates? Because he or she they already got their I-20, so they want to apply for the student visas. Can you give us like a good resource for the students and families to find that information?
Absolutely. The students can first visit our Education USA website. We have announcements on the top where they can find, a little bit more of guidance on where they can find the information on the Department of Homeland Security's website as well.
Okay.
But I would say the safest bet and perhaps the most accurate information country by country is going to be on the U.S. Embassy's website. They will have there posted what the consular status is, for their operations in each country. So, and most, at least in my portfolio, in my region, all of the embassies and the consulates have set up an email address, and students are always treated in a special way.
Yes.
Students are, legitimate students, and their intentions are legitimate. They will get the support that they need in order to process their paperwork with time.
Yes.
We all have to be very conscious about the processing times, and students need to do their homework ahead of time. Also on our website, we have a list of recommendations under our step 4, which is obtaining your student visa, where we tell you when you should start to plan to get your student visa. The paperwork. Do you already have your I-20? Has it been validated? If you're a returning student, and things like that. Just tips and recommendations. But I would say the best source, it's going to be the U.S. Embassy's website in each country.
Okay. Just want to say hi to Annie, to Nazan in Turkey. Hello, Nazan. Isabella Bobert. Hello. And thank you. Thank you so much for that. We've been having a lot of universities joining these live conversations. And for the students, we understand we're going on unprecedented circumstances right now. And embassies will reopen when they have to open around the world, but universities, they will accommodate you, whether you come in the fall or the spring, you do a hybrid program. But I know so that students are priority for embassies. So as soon as they get the green light from Washington, I'm sure that everybody's going to speed up. And I will tell you, I don't know about you, are you finding yourself working more hours, more time than before?
Yes, that's a tricky question. But definitely. But I will say also that I'm working more efficiently, because I'm focused 100% on what I need to be working on, as opposed to having excuses to get up and go grab some coffee, and things that perhaps took away and made my days longer before. So
I have a question for you. Do you have if you can answer, do you have a WhatsApp group for your advisors, like a whole advisor WhatsApp group?
Well, I have 3.
Okay.
3, because my portfolio, technically, I guess you could say I have 4 sub-regions. So I have, Canada. I have a group just for Mexico. So technically, I do have 4 groups. But then I have a North America, which it's all of Mexico and Canada. I have one WhatsApp group for all my Central America advisors, and one for all my Caribbean advisors.
Okay. No, I find WhatsApp an incredible tool. And now that you can synchronize WhatsApp with your computer, it's like a different email inbox, but it's different. But listen, we get messages on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube a little bit, but we get it on WhatsApp. We get it on Facebook. I'm like, oh my gosh, I get like 7 or 8 type of channels of communication, and everyone is expecting us to answer everything. So that's what I'm saying. People they have their preference in terms of media, which ones they use. And of course, we have the email. That email
Right.
won't stop. So,
We
and
cover them all, you
so
know.
but the most important thing, how is your family? How is Matt, your husband, in Mexico? How is your family in Ecuador? How is everyone doing?
Everyone is doing well now, yes. Matt's working from home too. My coworker has sometimes harder days than I do. He is currently working on a project with Italy. So time changes, time zone differences are a little bit of a, challenge sometimes. And also cultural work practices are
Hmm.
a little bit, you have to adapt into a different work culture
Yeah.
when you're working with a team of Italians, even though he is from Italian descent. But he's okay, and
Ma-
I have my little dog, who you probably have heard throughout this interview, wanting
yes.
to play with me. I apologize for
If,
that.
if your dog is around, you can lift it up so we can all see
Oh,
it.
he would love
And
nothing else than to be on camera, but here he is. This is my
uh,
Vito, everyone.
okay, stay there. I want to take a screenshot. Yeah, good.
Okay.
That's beautiful. And Maria Mercedes, before you give us your final thoughts, you've been in Mexico almost 8 years now.
Yes.
And what's your favorite dish of food in Mexico?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I, of course, am one of the fans of tacos al pastor, big
Uf,
time.
qué rico. Sí.
I love gorditas.
Wow.
I love Yucateca food. So cochinita pibil is
Mm.
another one of my favorites. I love seafood, so a lot of the seafood, from Sinaloa. Even though I have not been to Sinaloa, I love their seafood, and I love the meat from the north of Mexico. So
Good
there's so
job.
much food here.
So much food. And somebody, I think this is one of your advisors, Moburki do
Mo,
work.
yes,
Mo,
he's
she
my advisor
says
in Costa Rica, in San
she
Jose.
says she has some of her advisors watching, so you better be careful. So there are no favorites here. But anyway, I know you have to postpone your forum in Costa Rica. Hopefully, it will be open in the fall. But I've been watching you for years, develop from the Fulbright office into a country coordinator in Quito, and here you are the REAC for 55 centers, 24 countries. You are the face, one of the faces of Education USA. But I also want to say thank you to all the advisors around the world. It gives me the goosebumps because thanks to you, so many of us were able to have an opportunity to study and be educated in this great nation, the United States of America. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Education USA, the State Department, IIE, everybody for making the dream possible for many of us. What you guys are doing, and you guys that are watching don't know, the advisors work countless of hours to make things happen. So, Maria Mercedes, mi casa es tu casa. This is a place
Igualmente.
where you can come back soon. This video will be housed on our YouTube channel for you, JCT for Education. One last thought before we say adios. Hasta pronto.
Nope, it's just we just have to keep working towards our dreams. And right now that we have a little bit of extra time, let's just focus on doing that together.
Well,
It's a
let's do
time
it.
for everyone to come together and collaborate. So
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
thank you, Juan Camilo. Me too, so I can give you a hug in person.
Likewise. So, for those of you watching, Maria Mercedes Salmon from Mexico, live
Education
here,
USA.
Education.